Be sure to click on the link in the description to find all of these blueprints. You can either go directly to the downloadable PDF files, or you can go to the video which explains how to print these out to a 1:1 scale. So you need a little piece that will go over the blade right here, so it'll stop it from, you know, going down and pushing the slider up and knocking everything out of place. To make these small little pieces here, you're going to need to layer up a 16-layer card. Just in case you haven't seen any of my older videos, all you have to do is put glue on one half, just like this, and then spread it around evenly. And then you fold it over and push down in the middle first, just like that, and out toward the edges. Then find something random as usual and run all of the excess air and glue out. And then obviously if the piece is bigger, you fold it in the long direction, but since these pieces are pretty small, you just fold it this way. Then you do the same thing, put it on only this half, and then spread it around evenly and fold it over, just like before. And now I'm just going to find the center again and just cut down the middle. And now you can glue these together. And now just cut it in half one more time, and this will be 16 layers. After that, I usually put it under some textbooks to let it dry. It's relatively easy to cut through still when it's dry, and it's only 16 layers. But I also keep a lot of scrap 16-layer pieces. As you can see, this is just leftovers from other pieces, and it's very helpful when you want to build those small parts, but you don't want to wait for things to dry. So you can see right here, this is my dimension. It's 0.660 by 0.415. So 0.415 would be this direction from here to where the slider stops, right there. So it's right here, as you can see, and I am able to place it right there. So you don't, make sure you don't glue it to the blade or anything, but glue it to this wall surface here and this wall surface here, just the inside. After this small piece is glued on, you need to make a longer one that is 1.360 that fits inside of here. Make it snug, so it doesn't necessarily have to be that dimension, that's what mine is. And then make it the same width, 0.415, so it'll come to the same distance from here to the outside. And this will just glue right on top of here, so it will be like a step piece. And make sure everything's evened out. You can see here on the slider that I put some super glue and baking soda at the bottom and the top of this little gap. And the reason for that is if you look at this older hidden blade, this is paper here, and if you're using a metal rotating pin like I usually do, it kind of starts to dent a little bit. So to prevent that, that's what I'm doing for that spot. This slot is now exactly 1/8 of an inch wide. So if you were to take a 1/8 inch drill and put it in that slot, it should fit. You can also see a reinforcement piece right here, and how you do that is you grab a bobby pin like this and you unfold it. You could use paper clips too if you wanted to, or any other type of sheet metal. The reinforcement isn't completely necessary. I would say it's helpful for the middle section there because it's so thin. I'm just lining it up on this side to get the right length, as you can see. So I'm just going to clip it off roughly, so I'm just going to move it over a little bit. Alright, now you need to establish where you want to put this reinforcement. I figured about right here is a good spot because it helps support that area too. It's going to be going under pressure a lot of the time. So you can just line it up and take note where it ends right here. Just draw with a pencil or something. Then you just sketch a little pencil sketch just going down until you reach that point. I just went a little bit past it, but it doesn't matter. And then you grab your X-Acto knife or whatever knife you're using, and you want to cut down each side just a little bit, about the width of the bobby pin, if not a little bit wider. As you're cutting down the sides, you may realize that you can start to peel up the paper material here, just like that. So you keep doing that until it goes down just enough that this could be flush with the top surface. And then you just glue it in place. I'm using super glue to glue the reinforcement piece in there. Make sure you use pliers to keep it there. After you glue it in place, you're probably going to have some gaps, so you just put some super glue and sprinkle the baking soda over it, and it'll start filling it up. And then you can start to file it down just a little bit. Make sure it's nice and flat and looks good. So I have my basic schematic or a blueprint or whatever you want to call it right there of the top cover, and we're going to need to cut out little sections here later after we cut this out. So I have 7 of these 4-layer sheets of paper. So basically, you know, you would fold it in half and then you would fold it one more time this way and glue everything together, you know, and then you would have 4 layers. So that's how I got these, and I have 7. Since this top cover needs to be about 120 thousandths of an inch thick, this is my estimation for the amount. So I'm going to be able to, you know, peel some material off or even add some more if I have to. So I'm going to glue these all together. So now you just take the top cover blueprint or drawing, and on my hidden blade in particular, these pieces right here are going to go inside of these walls, and you'll see what I'm talking about in a little bit. So basically right now just cut around it and glue it onto your piece. Now you can cut around the whole outer edge. After you cut this piece out, you can go ahead and cut the circle out too, and start saturating it in super glue and getting these to the right width. Now once you're sure this middle section here can fit in this gap from this wall to this wall, then you can go ahead and line it up with all of these little spots, and you can make a little mark right here on the actual frame and here, and you want to cut out a section that goes the thickness of this, the top cover, which happens to be, in my case, 120 thousandths. So you just cut out 120 thousandths of the frame, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. All you have to do is measure these distances here, just like that, and then you make a little mark on the frame right there. You can kind of see it. Then you cut just straight down and you peel up however much you need to. In this case, it should come to the surface of the slider if this is in here. See how that's pretty much flush right there? After the top cover fits in these little slots just like this, you know, you can fine-tune some areas and all that, but you want to drill the holes where the pins go for the locks. So just pretty much how we did it before. So far I've only done this one. I'll do this one in a little bit, but I wanted to talk about this circle here. It doesn't matter what this circle is in particular. What does matter is the radius that the rotating pin needs to follow. The way you establish the path that the rotating pin needs to follow is by pushing the slider all the way forward to the furthest forward position, I guess, and you make a little mark on the frame right here between these two walls. So just right there, and then you push it all the way back and you do the exact same thing right here. And that distance between those two marks will create a diameter of a circle. That diameter, or the distance between those 2 points, is right here, and it will eventually line up with the center of the rotating pin. If you divide that distance by 2, you will get the radius that you need. And if you don't have a compass like this one, then you can use this paper trick that I'm about to show you. The distance between these 2 spots is the radius, so if you put the thumbtack through both of them to create a hole, and you stab this one into the paper, or whichever one. Then you take the pencil and you can draw a circle just like that, and you'll have the correct diameter. Now, as you can see, my rotating pin, this is a 0.125 hole, in other words 1/8 of an inch, just like this. So this fits in there just like that. The rotating pin must be centered on the circumference of the circle you draw. So if I zoom in a little bit here, sorry for this low quality digital zoom, but if I draw a little circle, this is not going to be an amazing drawing, but you can see it's centered on the circumference of this. Now, assuming this circle is 0.125, that means half of it is going to be going on the outside of this circle and half of it is going to be going on the inside of this circle, which means if you divide this by 2, you will get 0.062. The 2 marks on the frame represent how far the slider travels forward and backward. The 2 marks that I marked on the frame here are drawn on this piece of paper right here, and the distance was 1.08. So like I said, this will create a diameter of a circle. So if I take that measurement right there and divide that by 2, 1.08 divided by 2, I will get the radius, which is 0.540. Since the rotating pin right here is going to be centered somewhere on the circumference of this circle, that means half of it, 0.062, is going to go on the outside of the circle, right there, and half of it is going to go on the inside of the circle, so right there. As you can see, if I take the slider here and move it over this drawing right here, you can see the 1/8 inch circle is centered between these 2 walls right there. Since we know the slider is going to move this distance right here, we can represent this by putting it over the line and moving it back, and you can see it right there. Then move it forward. That's how far the slider needs to move back and forth. Since this is a diameter of a circle here, it moves the same distance but in rotational motion instead of linear motion. So I'm going to draw another little 1/8 inch circle down at the bottom right there. As you can see, the slider is all the way forward. Now if this moves back, it's the same distance as this, as you can see, because the rotating pin is in that position now. So this surface right here, as you can see, the top portion of the wall, is going to be contacted by this side of the rotating pin right there. So it's going to make its way around this circle here, going this direction if you're building it the way I am, just like that. This means somewhere within the linear motion of the slider, the rotating pin will always be somewhere within this gap. As you can see, down at the bottom it's right here, somewhere in the middle it's right there, and at the top it's right there. If I add 0.062 to this number, I will get the outer radius of the circle that the outside of the rotating pin will contact. So if I add it to this number, 0.540 plus 0.062, that will give me 0.602. As you can see, measured from the center of the circle out, goes to the outside of where the rotating pin is going to contact. So I just have to take the compass and position it on here, just like this, and that's the outside. So there it is right there. Outside circle radius is 0.602, like we just did. So now if I subtract 0.062 from this number right here, I will get the inside of the rotating pin, which is 0.478. So if I measure it here, it contacts the inside of the rotating pin, which is right there, and I just need to draw a circle using that. So I'm drawing it around. So now we have all of the information. We have the main circle, the radius is 0.540, the outside circle is 0.602, and the inside circle is 0.478. As you can see, if I limit the movement of the slider to a linear path, I can pretty much trace the circle that we drew earlier, and it moves it in a linear motion, even though the pencil is going in a circle. And sorry, I'm doing this left-handed, so it's a little bit challenging. Here's another diagram, and it's not even to scale, but it might be useful. As you can see, this is a transparent version of the slider in the furthest forward position and the furthest back position. As you can see, that's how far it travels. So that's the gap in the center, which you see here, and that is the path that the rotating pin needs to follow. Once you start building it and you get familiar with it, you'll understand everything. So like I said, this circle can be any size you want. It's the rotating pin that needs to be on the correct radius for your hidden blade in particular. It could be slightly different for you, depending on how accurate your slider is. If you're sure you've measured everything correctly, just use a little bit of sandpaper or make the circle a little bit bigger if you have to. If there's a problem, it's easily fixed. So as you can see, if I put this top cover on here, just like this, and it goes in all the slots and everything, then I put this circle in here that has the hole drilled in the correct spot, and you can see with the slider pushed all the way back, the outside of this circle should touch the wall of this gap in here in the slider, because we did all the math for it. So if I put it in just like that, sorry, it's kind of hard to see at this point, but if we put this here, you can see it's touching, it would be touching the back wall, assuming we had the rotating pin in there and the depth is correct and not going beneath the slider and interfering with anything. Then if I push this all the way forward, it should touch the front wall. You should be able to see it, but since my camera isn't HD enough, you can't see it. So since the rotating pin is going to be 0.125, what I'm going to be doing is finding something slightly smaller, preferably metal, and wrapping paper around it until I get that diameter. So I'll show you what I mean. So I found a nail just like this, which is originally 70 thousandths of an inch. So I took a tiny little piece of paper right here. This is 200 thousandths of an inch this direction. And I wrapped it around a piece. I cut off a piece of a nail just like this, and I wrapped it around with super glue, and I got this. So basically the reason it's 200 thousandths is so I have some material to take off later. You only have to wrap it just enough that it can fit pretty snug in here, just like that, because it should come off of this surface 70 thousandths of an inch. So if you were to take the depth indicator part just like that and measure, you just measure and make sure that's 70 thousandths of an inch. So now we can start building the wheel, and as you can see, this main circle that the arrow is pointing to is the circle that was cut out of the top cover. Obviously some sanding needs to be done around this circle in order to get it to rotate smoothly through the top cover. All you need to do is cut out the shape here. Since you already have the circle, you just need to cut around the wheel right here, so it just goes from there around and out and around. So it's basically two 1-inch circles offset by 200 thousandths of an inch. The one that I'm cutting out doesn't have this extra stuff on the top, and it's actually helpful to have this stuff on the top because it will help you get everything centered. So make sure you keep this diagram on there. This is the copy right here, so I'm going to cut it out. I'm sure you already saw this one in the background, but I'm going to glue it on top of this 16-layer piece, so you know, just a piece you made earlier or something, and just glue it on like that, and then you can go ahead and cut it out. So you just cut around this shape, just like that, just follow the dark line, and then as usual, you know, go around the edges with super glue and use the pliers to compress the layers, and then you need to match these up and make them as close to each other as possible, but don't glue them together just yet. So once they're reasonably even, like this, you just want to sort of shave down the sides a little bit, right there and right there, and do the same thing on this side, right over here, and you'll see what I mean. There's a little bit of chamfering here, as you can see. These sides are cut down, and it's all based off of the center. If you put a compass or something like that to draw a circle, and you just line it up with the circle here, you can draw a faint line or arc that you can reference off of. And basically you just cut down from that until you get relatively close to this edge. I wouldn't go all the way because it will be too thin, but just enough. Since we know everything works so far up to this point, meaning also the rotating pin, as you can see, just like that, you can glue both of these together. So all you have to do is just line up the center. You can use like a thumbtack or something and just put it, through the middle and glue it just like that. Also make sure that those two slope surfaces are facing inward toward each other. When both pieces are glued together like this, you can, go around, do some fine tuning, make the groove, more smooth. I recommend putting some reinforcements here. So I would use a bobby pin or even some sheet metal and, just cut out a groove just like we did on the slider, if you did do that, and put it inside. After you reinforce it, you can glue your rotating pin inside. Just make sure it's coming off of the bottom 70,000ths of an inch, which is about the thickness of the slider. So as you can see, the rotating pin is glued right there, and I drew a cross on here. What you want to do is draw a cross on your wheel also, and that will help you line everything up. The rotating pin should be all the way down at the bottom when the wheel is in the most horizontal position. So it would be just like this. So you just glue it on there, make sure everything's centered, and this is at the bottom. If it were to rotate all the way around, it would be at the top. After you glue the wheel to the circle, it should look something like this picture. And I think it looks pretty good. The best way to temporarily keep everything stable without having to drill a bunch of holes is using some rubber bands like this. And the wheel works perfectly. And of course, against gravity,